It's your main man, Dr. Life, in the business of saving lives. First responder, responding to unnatural, artificial, man-made disasters. The Shine Doctors. Yeah, it's the Shine Doctors. Shine Doctor, Kanisha, Zion Life. The Her RPG Shine on RPG. RPG is me, the rugged prophetic ghost of alien bedrock nation. We live in this world. We not of this world. This world is not our home. All right, so yesterday I gave you an intro. Told you I was going be doing a week of prayer, leading all the way into the end of the second 90-day. We started back October the 3rd. We did I introduced you all to the covenant of the last of the four annual wedding feasts. When the Son of God said, "Do this in remembrance of me," he was not talking about communion. He was talking about the wedding feast, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Symbolically, annually, practicing and preparing to go to the 1,000-year wedding feast millennium in heaven with the bride of Revelation 21. This do in remembrance of me. It ain't had nothing to do with no churches. It ain't had nothing to do with no communion. It ain't had nothing to do. They have substituted the church for the Holy Spirit bride. Idolatry. They have erased women totally. Men who love men, which is what Lucifer was, Ezekiel 28, which is what Lucifer chose, and his rebellion in heaven was the rebellion against being created in the image of Michael, the bridegroom, and each male being in heaven that was created in Michael's image had another being that was created just like Adam and Eve was created from within Adam. And then they were betrothed and married to each other. Lucifer's rebellion in heaven, Ezekiel 28 states, this notion where men love men and then men turn women and children into chattel slavery. I have just chosen to do the same exact work that the Messiah and the King of Kings did. Everywhere he went on earth, he went to these abused, traumatized women, the woman at the well, Mary Magdalene, everywhere he went. And the whole society had branded the group up in Samaria in Galilee, and he was born a Nazarite, the lowest of the low cities in. So Mary was chosen out of the worst neighborhoods, Mary and Elizabeth, the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. And it is the men of society that have categorized Galilee, Samaria, the Samaritans. We don't have a race issue. It's not about race. The Hebrews that hated the Samaritans were just like Cain who hated Abel. It is a spiritual The individuals who hate and want to kill, they have the same spirit of rebellion that Satan, Lucifer, has, their father. Cain and Abel had the same skin tone. They were twins. Cain and Abel had the same identity. They were twins. Abel had the spirit of God and Cain had the spirit of Satan. Miriam and Zipporah had the same skin tone. Zipporah was perfect. Miriam was a harlot and a slut in Egypt. Then when she gets in the presence of Zipporah and she sees that Zipporah has the grace of God and the anointing of God, and she's envious and she tries to use her relationship with her brother to put Zipporah in her place. And God said, you ain't even on her level. Your brother ain't on Zipporah's level. And cursed Miriam with leprosy, skin leprosy. And it says her skin was white as snow, and then put her out the camp like God cast Lucifer out of heaven. That is the only time where Miriam and Zipporah looked different. After the curse, same thing with Cain. Cain was doing what he was doing because spiritually he was Satan. So then God physically marks Satan's children so that everybody, he said, so that you will know that this is Cain, and because I have sentenced him to life on death row, I'm going to mark him so you don't accidentally kill him and be like, yo, God, I ain't know that was him. The only time God interjected fair skin into the pool of people was in the mark of Cain in the beginning, so that God's people who were still perfect in God's image, who had the original Ethiopian Cush ham, dark onyx skin. Can an Ethiopian change its onyx leopard skin? Or a leopard change its onyx leopard spots? No. Skin tone, perfect skin tone, matched the onyx gemstone. That's why that text about an Ethiopian changing his skin, because the first land that was ever mentioned in the word of God in Genesis chapter 2 is Ethiopia, around the Jordan River. That is not where they claim Ethiopia is today. So Haile Selassie is not important at all. Haile Selassie is not important at all. You heard me. Because that's not Ethiopia. So Haile Selassie has no connection, no biblical connection, no none of that. That's a fake, made up British colony. Just like Nigeria, just like Ghana. The land that they called Ethiopia, they tried to make their own Ethiopia to do so that you would be deceived and to fall into the deception and acknowledge the British crown as the royal crown, which y'all all have done. The word of God says Ethiopia is the lands around the Jordan River. The Jordan River is not on the southern tip of Africa where they claim, and it's not near the Nile River where they claim Ethiopia is. Ethiopia is near the Nile. Genesis 2 says the land of Ethiopia surrounds the Jordan River. So in your Bibles and in your history and in your maps, because they know you don't read, Genesis 2 says Ethiopia surrounds the Jordan River. So how can they put Ethiopia on a map near the Nile River when they write the King James Bible in 1611? Genesis 2 is 5,000 years before 1611. When they started making your maps and naming a continent called Africa. It wasn't even called Africa in Genesis chapter 2. There's no Africa in Genesis chapter 2. There's no Saudi Arabia in Genesis chapter 2. None. So all of the lands that y'all call present day, they don't have none of these lands, none of these kingdoms have any validity whatsoever, because we know what our lands are called based off of Genesis 2 and Genesis 10. And I just gave the world. No longer can a ruling class subjugate the masses of people because of ignorance no more. That's over with. In our hip hop neighborhood games, we've given the people the name of their neighborhood based off of their original lands in Genesis 2 and Genesis 10. Genesis 2, Genesis 5, Genesis 10. So this iron grip that England and Europe and the Germans and Africans and Asians and anybody lying trying to say, and Indians who want to go from the east and then come to the west because their paganism in the east has caused their so-called kingdoms. Nobody from the east. There is no nation in the east that can stand alone on its own without the USA. None of them. All of them receive welfare in the billions and the trillions through tax dollars, through sex tourism, all of the sex that you can't have, all of the illegal sex, all of the prostitute. Listen, the number one thing that all of these other nations are offering are a place where you can come and do drugs, and a place where you can come and have all of the sex that is illegal and outlawed. All you got to do is take a vacation, book a vacation. So, sex tourism, drugs. That's the economy. That's the world global economy. Crowns where? Where's a crown at? Where? Where's greatness at? Where? So, we're going to give all of the masses and all of the people they direct line to their own crowns and their heritage. And our people can no longer be subjugated by nobody else. And in the U.S., I'm going to start directly. Yesterday, I was making a video, and I noticed when I uploaded the video, the end of the video somehow mysteriously disappeared. Okay? So in every video that I make, I will connect the dots between this human trafficking. Ain't no such thing as human beings. First off, let's get that straight. Okay? That's a term that Eleanor Roosevelt abused, traumatized wife who her and her husband just put on a form of marriage. She was loving women and he was loving women and men. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And she goes to the United Nations and she does a declaration of human rights. This is where y'all get the term human beings from. Eleanor Roosevelt. Who the heck is Eleanor Roosevelt? God didn't create no humans. When God created in his image, it says he created mankind, kind man. Husbands, love your wives. Adam was a kind man. He didn't create humans. Humans come from the term humanism, transhumanism, to change our slaves that we've colonized into our image, transhumanism. All of the colonial and imperial nations, the people that they enslaved, they called humans. Transhumanism is the philosophy and the worship of the Roman Catholic Church. Transhumanism. What? Trans means to change these human beings into our image, after our likeness, after we break them like we break a horse. Stock exchange, live stock exchange. Transhumanism, livestock. You are livestock being traded on the New York Livestock Exchange. Human, and you call yourself a human being. Why? God ain't call you no human. And when God was referring to himself in the third person when he was on earth, he called himself the Son of Man. He ain't say the Son of Humans. And he said Son of Man, he was saying Son of the husbandman. God the Father is the husbandman, and he is the son of the husbandman. Where you get humans from? Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt, your God? Franklin Delano Roosevelt, your God, your creator? All y'all identify with being a human. Where'd you get the word from? All of these words got a start date. You got to do is go to the Oxford Dictionary. But where did Oxford come from? Where did the English language come from? King James and the King James Bible. Where did King James get the King James Bible from? John Dee. Who is John Dee? A satanic, devilish bishop of Rome. Where he get his start from? We could do this all day long. Go all the way back to the beginning. We know exactly where the start date of Rome came from. Emperor Constantine, 317. When he was a pagan emperor of Rome and could not stop the power of the Holy Ghost from what Paul had done in Europe when God came to him on the Damascus road and told him, go to them pagans and let them pagans know, yo, during the time of ignorance, I winked on this pagan ignorance, following Satan, the outcast on earth. If they do not want to be cursed and judged, they better recognize that they better come out of Babylon and stop playing on my earth. You can't eat nothing. Cain couldn't make nothing grow. And that was his ability and his gift before he became a satanic, spiritual, demon-possessed slave of Satan. So then God cursed his hands and cursed the ground wherever he went. Since you want to acknowledge my enemy in the planet and the earth that I created, oh, you can worship what you want. You could choose to believe whatever you want to believe. But there are consequences when you disrespect the true creator and you choose to ignore the creator and worship a created being that wants to usurp the authority. You can worship the created being. But God said, you're going to get the same exact judgment he got. I'm not going to stop you from choosing it, but you're not going to drink my water and worship my enemy. No, it's called the drought. You ain't going to eat the fruit from my tree of life and worship my enemy. No, it's called the famine. You ain't going to disrespect and want to reverse the things that I created you to love and say, yo, I get to choose to love what I want to love. Oh, yeah, you do. But I got something called the disease. Leprosy for individuals who defile my holy sanctuary that's in my image after my likeness. I got something called the disease, called AIDS. Yeah. You get to choose, you get to believe that you get to do whatever you want to do. You do. But every action has an equal and opposite reaction from God. It's called judgment. The wages of sin is death. So I'm going to show y'all. And I'm going to tie your favorite imposter, Barack and Michelle Obama. All y'all people of color act like, yo, Barack and Michelle Obama were this. But that's because y'all was in the country and y'all ain't know. Y'all was in the country and y'all didn't know that y'all could be free. All of y'all who looking up to who, that's because y'all never had no identity before the Obamas came around. Y'all believe this narrative. Y'all believe that black narrative that's put out, the Kunta Kinte narrative every February. Y'all believe that garbage. Y'all believe that nobody was here in the U.S. and the only way people of color got here was through. Y'all believe that that's what that. So y'all believe that y'all needed a deliverer. But because we know who we are, how a deliverer gonna come from Kenya, from Africa, and they ain't never been free? The Africans ain't never been free. There's no African nation that's separated from its colonial. They still under colonial rule today, right now. I can tell you each and every crown that still taxes each and every African nation right now to this day. All of the African countries that France colonized, they still pay tribute. They still are taxed. They still are under the imperial power of their slave master, France, today. Every single one of those nations that was colonized by England are still under England, just like in the Caribbean right now. These individuals still pointing back to the Dutch and the British and whoever enslaved them 200 years ago. Are y'all serious? The internet done came out, everything. Y'all serious? Black people in the United States of America, talking about Barack and Michelle Obama, are individuals who believe in the transatlantic slave trade, and that's how y'all got here. So, because of that ignorance, the Western world was able to give you artificially manufacture a nobody So I'm going to finish the video that was on the end of the video. Okay? And the reason why we're talking about all this is because, first of all, let me tell you something. Matthew 24. Okay? Matthew 24 said, just like in the days of Noah. Matthew 24, the disciples said, what are the signs that you are coming back? What are we going to see? He said to the Messiah himself, the same one who said, in 3 days, I'm gonna let them destroy this body and I'm gonna take it back up again. And he said, no man take my life. I'm gonna lay my life down and I'm gonna take it back up again. And not one stone will be left on Jerusalem. And they like, whoa. He like, yeah, judgment. When they destroy this body, and when I take it back up, then I'm gonna destroy all of them that destroyed me. They said, whoa. So what are the signs that we're going to see when you coming back again to finally judge and pour out? Because we know that in Noah, you put the rainbow and said it ain't going to be a judgment by water no more. It's going to be a judgment by fire. He said, yeah, you're right. They said, what are the signs we're going to see when you're about to judge the world by fire? He said, you're going to see just like in the days of Jonah, just like in the days of Noah. So Jonah was sent to Nineveh because Nineveh was engaging in the same exact freak-offs that they were engaging in before the flood. Jonah is after the flood. Noah is before the flood. So God says, and he specifically said, they will be entering and giving into marriages, all type of marriages, abominable marriages that I have to judge and destroy the world for. Understand? They're asking him, what are we going to see when you're going to judge the world? So he's not talking about a righteous marriage. What was happening in Genesis, it's clear. It says the sons of God saw the daughters of men. When Adam and Eve died, their children no longer had the spiritual leadership was gone, and they had an option. And then they looked over to the first son of Adam, Cain, who introduced killing, who introduced murder, who introduced sex with the dead. Every satanic thing on earth was introduced in the beginning with Cain. Adam and Eve established the covenant with God, the righteous covenant, and Cain was demon possessed by Satan, and Cain's children did all of the things before the flood that got God to destroy them, and all of the things that they call Babylon and that y'all call Hollywood is what God destroyed the world by flood. So when they said, okay, in the end, God is, I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever. You're going to see the same thing. But because they weren't there, but because they are scholars, they knew what it meant. They were Hebrew scholars. So they knew what he said, just like it was in the days of Noah. Y'all the only ones that don't make the connection. Just like it was in the days of Jonah. God sent Jonah to Nineveh to tell Nineveh to turn from abominable practices. So then in 2024, during the Olympics, when the whole world is watching, the individuals, they put on a display of abominations during the opening ceremonies. And then in 2025, we have the case of Puff Daddy, the freak-offs. 2024, the whole world is out in the open. So France is the seat of the shrine of Isis, the temple of Isis. The Roman and Egyptian resurrection of Pharaoh in Egypt's satanic sun god worship system. Julius Caesar took Cleopatra and made Cleopatra the shrine temple prostitute in Paris 27 years before the Son of God was born. Documented history. Paris is the shrine of Isis. The Cathedral of Notre Dame is where Julius Caesar took Cleopatra, and the pagan world has always worshipped Satan in the female form of Isis from Paris from 27 years before the Son of God was born to this very day. So when they had the Olympics in Paris in 2024, that's the Olympics of Isis. So of course they would do the abominations and the mockery of God during the Paris Olympics because that's the shrine to Isis. And ISIS is not some military force out there. No. Sacrifice, killing, Cain killed Abel. Genesis chapter, that is the worship of Isis. The children of Isis worship the dead. The Egyptians worshiped the dead. When Pharaoh died, everybody in his household was killed because they believed the Pharaoh in the after. You had to go serve the Pharaoh in the after. Ain't no afterlife. There is no afterlife. The creator of heaven and earth said, the living know that they shall die. The dead know not anything. Ain't no afterlife. God said, I take back my breath of life. When your heart stops pumping, when I breathe into the nostrils the breath of life and man becomes a living soul. And when your heart stops and when you die, I take back the breath of life. Ain't no living soul. Ain't no dead talking. Ain't no dead walking. Ain't no communicating with the dead. God takes back the breath of life. And either your name is found written in the Lamb's Book of Life or it ain't. Ain't no nothing after you die. That's a pagan belief system. Only pagans believe that you could talk to the dead. The Egyptians created that. The Babylonians created that. Satan and the outcast from heaven is who you communicating with. Demon possession means when they got cast out of heaven, they had the ability when individuals on this earth do not maintain their protection and enmity by remaining in the image of God. And when they defile their temples, they open themselves to demon possession. And so when you believe you communicating with people that have died and gone before, you're communicating with a being that was tempting them and trying to possess them or possessing you or whatever. You're not dealing with the person themselves because the creator said, when you die, I take back my breath of life and man man returns back to the dust. The beings that I cast out of heaven, they will always be here until I burn them in the lake of fire. So that's who you're communicating with. That's who you're worshiping. That's who you're doing magic to. That's who you're doing seances to. That's who. So, because there's people that want to call those unfamiliar, unclean spirits God. And they want to have sex with them. And they want to whatever, yo. But then they want to come into a church and tell you that we all worship the same. No, we don't. We don't worship the same God. That ain't a God. Those beings lost in heaven. Then when the Messiah came down to earth, those beings lost on earth too. I'm not no loser. I don't acknowledge losers. So at the end of the video that I did the other day, I began to connect Barack Obama and his administration with this MK Ultra, because Bill Clinton is directly called out. But Donald Trump and Epstein are a continuation of what has always gone on from the White House at the highest levels. Okay? Because the Roman system, the Roman priesthood of worship is called Mithraism. In Mithraism, they have a fake false prophet named Zoroaster. Zoroastrianism is the official worship system in Persia. If y'all know anything about Daniel, which most of y'all don't, Persia was the second kingdom. Now, they tried to link Medo-Persia. There's no such thing as Medo-Persia, okay? None. There's no connection between the Medes and Persia. Zero. Persia is garbage and trash and was judged. And the Medes were God's hand of judgment, just like Jonah was God's messenger to Nineveh. There was no message for Babylon. Daniel was the messenger sent to Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar turned from his wicked ways and ended up worshiping the God of Daniel. But Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, the prince of Persia, Belteshazzar is his name. After his grandfather and his father worshiped the God of Daniel, he said, I'm going to take the people back into this idolatry. The prince of Persia, Belteshazzar, said, yo, go get the women who now trying to worship God and have dedicated their temples back to God, and we going to defile their sanctuaries like Satan did in heaven. And he began the same Nimrod in the Tower of Babel. Every single person that has done a rebellion, it has been a sexual rebellion to defile the people and then demon possess them and then enslave them. And that's what Belteshazzar tried to do. And as soon as he started the orgy and the party, God had already 200 years beforehand said, when they try and take my people back, I'm going to send them a king named King Cyrus, the kingdom of the Medes. Now, this is the same kingdom that Zipporah, Moses' wife, is from the same exact kingdom. Don't have no connection to Persia. Zipporah's father, Jethro, the high priest of Midian, when Moses came out of Egypt as a refugee, the Medes have no connection with the Persians. None. It was the Persian princes who hated Daniel and hated that Daniel had the favor of the king, the second king of the Median kings, named King Darius. So they go and they like, King Darius, the people, we all worship you as God. Daniel worships this other God. You should make a law, because the kingdom of Media is the greatest kingdom that the world has ever seen. And when the kingdom of Media makes a law, it is everlasting law on earth. That's how dominant the kingdom of Media is. And the Persians knew that once the king of Media said, this is law, it's law, it can't be changed. The Persians didn't have that ability. The Persians tried to use the laws and the strength of Media against Daniel, God's children. This is what the story says. And those Persian princes ended up in the lion's den getting eaten up when God delivered Daniel. Same thing in the story of Queen Esther. A Persian prince named Haman. There is no connection between the Medes who are ruling King Cyrus. Isaiah 45 says King Cyrus will come and destroy. And do you know that this clown Donald Trump claimed that he is the present day King Cyrus? And those fake Hebrews out in the fake land of Israel that God identified as the synagogue of Satan, they hailed Donald Trump as Cyrus and then put his face on a coin. He put an embassy in fake Israel and was hailed as King Cyrus. That's false prophecy. So in Revelation it says, 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Washington, D.C., USA, I've already proved Revelation has fulfilled Revelation 13, and the U.S. and every U.S. president is the fulfillment of the dragon speaking lamb like beast, and then the presidents with their fake Roman priesthood called Mithraism are the false prophets of Revelation. Every last one of them, including and especially Barack Obama. And all of them engage in the same abomination freak-offs that Belteshazzar did, and Belteshazzar died that same night, the handwriting on the wall. He died that night. And God had predicted his death 200 years before in Isaiah 45. Told that King Cyrus would divert the Euphrates River. And that's exactly what he did. He diverted the strongest river on one of the strongest rivers on planet Earth. He diverted the waters of it. Just like Moses walked through the Red Sea on dry ground, he diverted the waters of the Euphrates River, and his army attacked underneath the city to where the Euphrates River used to flow into the city. They attacked that way and came up and killed Belteshazzar, trying to put the Persian abominable sex rituals to defile God's children. And so what Puff Daddy and what Jay-Z and what the industry and Hollywood, what Wall Street and what Washington D.C. and your senators and your congressmen and your presidents, they got Camp David out here, and they done created NASA, and they got these top secret clearance sites that they go to. Ritual shrines, sex prostitutes. And I began showing you yesterday the CIA created a drug program called MK Ultra, mind control, to be able to sex traffic people and then wipe their memory and then use mental health, multiple personalities disorder. They defined it as multiple personality disorder because the sexual trauma is so bad that it shatters the psyche of these people. And so then they can use them as spies. They could use them as assassins. They could use them as anything. And then they won't give up the secrets because the trauma, the sexual trauma is so defiling that to protect itself, the brain shatters to hide the reality of the trauma that the body is going. That's the only way the victim is able to survive the amount of sexual trauma. And this is what they do at the White House at the highest levels. And they had to document it because God said what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. Satan's children have to declare This is how we are defiling you. This is how we are leading you into the pit of hell so that you have a choice. Nobody can take away your choice to go to the kingdom or go to hell. So they are in violation if they do not openly tell you the truth that I am a child of Satan and the practices I'm doing to you are satanic. And then you still have the choice whether or not you are going to participate or not. Otherwise, God says, where evil can be found, my grace does always abound, and I will always provide a way of escape. That's what redemption is. So, built into their rituals, they have to declare this is who we are. And then you have to choose to join their brotherhoods, join their sisterhoods, participate in the rituals, still go and take their blood money and take their blood sex. And all. You have to choose it. But they put it in allegories. But they put it in hyperbole. But they put it in masquerades. But they put it in hidden Hollywood. They put it in arts. The Greeks created the plays so that they could tell the stories of their sexual rituals and how they worship their gods. And they created the plays to embed the soul-defiling rituals when they're initiated into the priesthoods of these fallen devils that was cast out from heaven. Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, and all of it is to the Greek and Roman gods that they worship. That's what a play was. A play is just the ritual. And so to get the masses to fall in love with and train their generations to go through this process, they created entertainment. Let me come and entertain you and tell you this story and sing you this song. And what? Zeus. And that's how y'all know who the Greeks. And then the Romans just copied the Greeks. So Hollywood is that. So the MK Ultra program, they didn't have technology then. That was the problem. They had the drugs. They had the sex. They had the White House. They had all of these places where they could take your daughters. They could take your wives. They could take your sons. They got the Bohemian Groves. They go up into San Francisco and they tell everybody in the world, you can't come here. They use their military and their police to keep the public out while they go and abduct and traffic your children. Bring your children up to their club, and then they fly the people in from the United Nations and from Africa and from Nigeria and Saudi Arabia. They all come, everybody who's a millionaire and a billionaire and all of it. And then they do the most abominable practices behind the cloak and dagger of, yo, this top secret clearance, and you don't have clearance. What? Right there in San Francisco, Bohemian Groves, the temple to Molech, the number one god in the word of God that God told Israel, I will destroy y'all for worshiping this God. That's the God that they worship in the Bohemian Groves openly, publicly. Yale University, Harvard University are where you go to get initiated to get into that club. Yale is the man side, so the worship of Osiris. Then they have a Freemasonic brotherhood and sisterhood, co-masonry, where they just this is where the sexual orientation thing, gender fluidity, that's Harvard. All right, that's Harvard. Yale is directly. You come in here because we worship Osiris, we worship Odin, the male god of gods. Then all of the female deities are second. So that's eroticism. And so in that brother and sisterhood, because you got men who want to be women too, Julius Caesar wanted to live his life as a woman. So during the Olympic Games, he presented himself to the people as a woman. And they had sex with him as a woman. That's where you get drag queens from. Julius Caesar, during the Olympic Games, Greek and Roman men wanted to be women. And they were worshipped as women. They received worship. The emperor received worship as a woman. And the worship was sex. Ain't no secret. So that's what Harvard is. And when you go to get initiated into the Harvard Greek and Roman fraternities, it is a sexual initiation, all of them. Just like at Yale, all of them. The men who go to worship Osiris, they just saying, we dominate all of y'all. And this was crazy to me about these women and this women's liberation movement or whatever. From Nefertiti to Cleopatra, there was no pharaoh in Egypt. And those women-led kingdoms for 1,440 years did nothing. Nothing. The children of Israel was in the promised land. Greece and Europe were up north. They didn't invade. They didn't expand the land. None of that. Nothing happened. Nothing. No power. No might. No nothing. Just sexual perversion. And then when Rome was in power, Cleopatra subjugated herself and allowed herself to marry Julius Caesar so that she could expand her kingdom up into Europe. So how do women have power? How do women have power when you were independent, but you was a pagan? Because you was a pagan, you couldn't be fruitful and multiply. So instead of turning to God like the Hebrews did, and these are black women. These are black women. Instead of turning back to God like Nineveh did, instead of turning back to God like Nebuchadnezzar did in Babylon, they saw how God delivered the Hebrews and restored his covenant with the Hebrews and then gave them their own land. But no, they wanted to reign like the pharaohs did in sun god worship, which is the worship of Satan, And they could not be fruitful in 1440 years. And so then, the reason why men of the earth do women and children the way they do, especially you black women and children, is because from Nefertiti to Cleopatra, they tried to rule the world and couldn't. And then they allowed the Romans to sexually subjugate them. Where is women's liberation at? Where? That's the only story y'all could tell. So that's why the men of the earth do women the way that they do. And unless you do live the life that Moses' wife, Zipporah, she elevated Moses' worship. She restored the covenant of worship back in the life of Moses, the leader of the Hebrews. This tell y'all how far off y'all are. Moses is supposed to be the leader of the Hebrews. His wife had to teach him what a spiritual covenant was. So what is that saying? Y'all following the wrong women of color. That's what that's saying. The righteous women of color, they there. The righteous women of color that God promised that the Messiah and the King of Kings will be born through have always been on the earth and have always restored the covenant so that the Messiah can be born from generation to generation. That's the only thing that you can count on. When God promised Eve that a Messiah will be born, there has always been women from that promise to this day. Perfect. But y'all choose to follow the whores. Y'all choose to let them elevate the skin tone of the whores and the harlots. Not no more. Because I got a document and I'll go chapter by chapter, chapter by chapter by chapter, from Genesis to present day. So it's over. These videos right here, my job is done. And I'm going right into each neighborhood. When we taking these neighborhood games, every Friday and Saturday, our people gonna get their inheritance and their covenant back and their wealth back. And they're gonna bypass all of these lies. None of your schools can deceive our people. None of your courts, none of your nothing. It's over with. All you could do is get your covenant back too. But the current, this called the Battle of Armageddon, by the way. Matthew 24, when he said, listen, there will be wars and rumors of wars. And when you see these signs, he said the moon will turn to blood. There are going to be supernatural things that are going to happen. Okay? But the first thing that he said, the number one thing that he said you're going to see the freak-offs from the days of Noah and the days of Jonah. The days of Jonah is Nineveh. Freak-offs. So in 2024, when I saw the Olympic Games, 2025, I took y'all through a whole year of restoring the wedding feast covenants. And then I told you it was a judgment year. Blood moons. Judgment year, 2025. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 is the number of Satan. Pentagram, the goat. Oh, Eastern Star. That's Harvard. That's the brotherhood and sisterhood where in the occult society where it's men and women in that brotherhood and sisterhood. The first three universities in the U.S. Yale, Harvard, and William and Mary is in the South, and so they have a statue called Baphomet, and they had two little kids next to the statue of Baphomet. Your boys and your Girl Scouts and your Boy Scouts, Baphomet. William and Mary, Baphomet. All right, so
this game, you're not ready for it.
Into mind-altering substances and methodologies.
At a time of
chapters in the history of U.S. government experimentation.
It was the most secret program ever conducted by the CIA in the United States.
Project MKUltra had its roots in the Cold War era, marked by heightened tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Fears of mind control and brainwashing techniques being employed by the Soviets prompted the CIA to initiate its own research into mind-altering substances and methodologies.
At a time of paranoia about the so-called Red Menace, the Americans believed the Soviets and Chinese might well have devised an effective brainwashing method, and the CIA was determined to crack it.
In 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles approved MKUltra, assigning it to the technical services staff of the CIA. The primary objectives of MKUltra were to develop methods for mind control and interrogation, with a focus on chemical and psychological means.
The new goal is to cause an individual to become subservient to an imposed control.
And then they did it on the American public during the hippie drug, sex, and rock and roll revolution, Woodstock. So all of these young teenagers was just out, free love, and the CIA was doping them and then testing them and using them as guinea pigs. That is MKUltra. But they didn't have the computer technology to be able to control them properly until now. Elon Musk, Barack Obama, privatizes NASA, gives Elon Musk like $32 billion, I think the document said. Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, right here in Florida, on the Space Coast, Kennedy Rocket Center, under his Tesla operation. So they gave one private businessman. So what is privatization? So you have the federal government. NASA used to be under the federal government. So you go to Congress, you get a defense contract. You get a contract for what's going to be done at NASA, the science, the test, the right? Congress gets it approved. The Senate, they approve it, and they print the money, and they give NASA $38 billion to do whatever. Privatization says, okay, we're going to have a independent business do this for us. Elon Musk. So if you're an independent business and they still do the same process and have the federal government print the money, they just give the money to one person instead of all of the congressmen and senators approving it and letting it go to NASA. And then he's not just doing cars. No. What's Elon Musk into? This is the new MKUltra program. Brain
You're one
implants.
sentence away from launching your website with Base 44. Since the beginning of the internet, there's never been such a fun, fast, and
Brain implants.
This morning, Elon Musk announcing that for the first time, his company Neuralink has implanted a brain chip in a human.
So Barack Obama's administration gave him the billions of dollars in SpaceX. Barack Obama. Yeah. And Barack Obama, there was not the number there. under Barack Obama's administration, okay? So each and every administration has had a specific one of these drugs that they have unleashed on the people. And it's always these European or African, let's say Eastern nations that want to come west because they have failed economies, they have failed kingdoms, they have failed. Why do they have failed societies? Because they are still participating and engaging in the same practices that have always been cursed by God. God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And the Philistines will always get what the Philistines have always gotten. The Canaanites will always get what the Canaanites have always gotten. I don't care what the Canaanites call themselves. They can call themselves Nigerians. They can call themselves England, Europeans. It doesn't matter what they try and masquerade as. By their fruits ye shall know them. All I'm telling you is these individuals have proven that they are the same biblical Babylonians, Canaanites, Philistines, Romans, Greeks, and I can take you to curse after curse, everlasting curses for all of these nations. And whenever a nation present day fulfills that they have the fruit of these nations, they have brought the curse up to present day. That is what's called the mark of the beast. And I am saying, out of the White House in Washington, D.C., they're disguising it under evangelical Christianity. They're disguising it under Roman Catholicism. They're disguising it under Islam. They're disguising it under the Jews. They're disguising it under Scientology. They're disguising it under the Nation of Islam. They're disguising it. Listen. And God said, be not deceived. God is not mocked. God said, I will cut this time short because even the very elect would be deceived. But God also said that he would raise up individuals so that the people that want to go to the kingdom can get to the kingdom. So once again, this is a direct connection between Barack Obama and the MK Ultra. And there's a direct connection between Barack Obama and Donald Trump and the Epstein freak-offs. Direct. Jay-Z and the 4040 Club. Jay-Z and the 4040 Club, the place where Barack Obama went to fundraise when he was running for president. And then when he was running for president, he brings Jay-Z out on the tour. Right? Then when Donald Trump runs for president, first prominent black entertainer that Obama sends to the White House, Steve Harvey. Now, Steve Harvey and Donald Trump were already in bed together with the Miss America pageant. Freak-offs. Obama, Steve Harvey, Donald Trump, Epstein, freak-offs. You got the same women that was being taken to Epstein Island. Miss America pageant and the Victoria's Secret models. These are the two pools that Donald Trump and Epstein and Barack Obama and Steve Harvey and all of them was moving in. These are the same freak-offs that happen at the Hamptons that they all go to. Jay-Z, you know the white parties Jay-Z and all of them be having at the Hamptons. The politicians participate, but they don't want the notoriety and the scrutiny because It goes against the image that they promote. But they've been doing it for so long. And God said what's done in the dark shall be brought to the light. It's a direct connection. Steve Harvey and Donald Trump was doing the Miss America pageants together. And those same women were being abused at Epstein Island. Same thing with the Victoria's Secret models. Then as soon as Donald Trump get in the White House, Steve Harvey go to the White House. And he like, yo, listen, it may seem controversial, but President Obama asked me to come out here, so I'm here because Obama sent me. Then when Donald Trump needed the support from the black church, where he go to? Chicago. He went straight to Chicago, got them stepping fetches from Chicago. Obama. First he gave his blessing to Steve Harvey. Then he gave his blessing to them black church clowns. And then it been rapper after rapper after rapper. Why? Donald Trump and Russell Simmons. Russell Simmons been Donald Trump's best friend since the 80s. Epstein freak-offs. Epstein freak-offs. Russell Simmons was taking his wife, Kimora, and it's well documented in his own book, in his own autobiography. Don't even play with me. Parallel Lines, his own autobiography. He tell that the sex, drug, and rock and roll, that's all they was on Def Jam. Freak-offs. And his best friend, Donald Trump, was at the height. Listen, Russell Simmons was dealing with the Epstein Island. Back in the 90s, they got the picture of Donald Trump and Epstein partying up. This is the height of Russell Simmons and Donald Trump's relationship. Donald Trump been the man in New York. Barack Obama claimed he went to Columbia University in New York at the height of when Donald Trump and Russell Simmons was dealing with Epstein and the freak-offs. And then let's go to, okay, fentanyl. Fentanyl, let's go. A couple years ago, my mom came down here. Mom Harris came down here and she moved to Titusville. Titusville is right down from where Elon Musk got his NASA operation. Titusville is on that same beach coast. And so I discovered that the naval operations, one of the top naval operations, I believe his name is John Burke. He got a son that been running dope, running drugs. And so the son somehow, I guess in Titusville, he been, you know what I'm saying, he been on drugs for so long. He out there trying to be a handyman and do type work or whatever. So he ended up, and my mom has always been rehabilitated. That's what we do, dignified re-entry back into society. That's what we do. Not just with her organization Harris Homes, been doing this since the 80s in Trenton. Taking people who, drug addicts, taking people, abused women, all of that. Harris House. That's what she does. So it wouldn't be alarming for her to be dealing with an individual who's a recovering drug addict, because that's what she does. She rehabilitates people. It just so happens that this is the son of one of the highest naval generals. And he tells that the operation that they was running, the planes, they dropped the fentanyl, they dropped the drugs in these rivers. And, you know, we got this little Gatorland thing out here. We got the airboats, and we go out and we pick the package up on the airboats. Ain't nobody gonna be patrolling them waters. It's alligators out there. We got the airboats. We got the little gator land thing going on. They got a whole operation. Then once they get the fentanyl and the drugs that they drop from the sky out of the planes into the airboats, then they take it to the Gatorland thing. Who gonna come up there and check out? And then they break it down, package it up, and take it to the streets in Titusville. And it's all our black people moving it through the streets. And y'all wondering how the Chinese getting all of this fentanyl into the country. So you got fentanyl drug operation. You got Barack Obama put the $32 billion into that establishment over there on the Space Coast. Elon Musk, and then you got Elon Musk out here, he taking that money straight from the federal government and he putting brain chips. The missing component that they didn't have in the CIA's operation back in the day. Oh, now they got the missing component thanks to Barack Obama, Elon Musk, the United States Navy's drug operation in fentanyl. Come on, don't even act like that, because y'all know the dude, what was his name? Gary Webb with the Mercury. He exposed. He did the same thing during the Iran-Contra scandal. Freeway Ricky Ross was created because the federal government, Ronald Reagan, George Bush the senior, Ronald Reagan was the president. George Bush Sr. was the vice president. A man named Oliver North was their general who was selling guns to Iran, and Donald Trump is attacking Iran. Iran being connected to the White House's drugs operations from the door. Oliver North is selling guns to Iran, taking the profits from Iran, taking guns. Iran doesn't have the capabilities to make weapons. And the weapons that they were selling to Iran, they were making in Huntsville, Alabama, Oakwood University. Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. You have Lockheed Martin. You have all of the top military ammunition. So all of the weapons of the world. Nobody makes their weapons. They get it from the U.S. And the U.S. makes it in one place, Huntsville, Alabama. One place. So Oliver North, having Lockheed Martin and all of those companies in Huntsville, Alabama, make the weapons, and he's taking the weapons and he's selling the weapons to Iran. Iran gets the weapons. Oliver North gets the cash. Well, he couldn't bring it back to the U.S., so he gives the cash down to, and they claim, we're fighting against the communist people in South America. So the communist people are working with the Soviets and they want to attack us from our southern border. So we're going to destabilize their nations by flooding their nations and their people with crack, with cocaine. Our way that we're going to fight against communists in South America is to fill the people up with drugs. Yes. So they take the cash and they invest in drugs, cocaine, heroin, to flood South America. And also, they was flying the drugs in directly and dropping them in LA. Freeway Ricky Ross in Oakland, in California. Freeway Ricky Ross was getting a pipeline directly from that U.S. created pipeline from South America. They was bringing the pure cocaine straight into the hood. So why would they bring it into the hood? We wasn't communists. Why would they bring it into the U.S. too? They did the same thing in Miami. The Colombian drug lord, the female Colombian drug lord, who was the queen of the operation before Pablo Escobar. They did Scarface off Pablo Escobar, but Pablo Escobar was under the queen. So the movie The Godfather is really the godmother of the drug operation in Colombia. And she was in Miami. So they got Miami, where the federal government is backing, flooding the streets with drugs. And you got California, Florida and California. Florida and California all day. Heroin, cocaine, and that led to the crack epidemic. So the fact that Obama and Biden and Trump are in the fentanyl age and using Yo MTV rappers and these YouTube contracts. Once again, Def Jam, Lawyer Cohen, Rick Rubin. Lawyer Cohen took over YouTube. And everybody's getting they contracts to get into the industry through YouTube now. It's the same freak offs, same pipeline, same people. So I wanted to do this video to make sure that y'all know that. And yesterday I said in the video, I broke down. So they put these Democrats and Republicans, there's no difference between the two. All right. Going back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his first cousin, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican. First cousins. And then right after Teddy Roosevelt did a terrible job, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the Democrat, was in there for like 16 years. And he did even worse job. There's no difference. What the difference is, the Democrats, they get their money in their businesses and their organizations by lying and telling the people that they serve the people. The Republicans, they get all of their money by saying, forget the people. We're going to deal with the businesses in the U.S. We're going to help businesses thrive. We're going to help Walmart expand. And we'll get our money and we'll chop up our money with Walmart. The Republicans, their number one constituent is businesses, and the Democrats, that's why they focus on welfare. That's why they focus on Social Security. And they get all of their money, their children, their brothers, their sisters, they set up companies to be able to, when Congress make the bills and all of that, their companies then